Welcome back, everyone, to Insight, and we're talking about the FCAT, and I'm here with Dr. Alexis Tibbetts and the Insight kids. And just in case some of the viewers just, joined in with us, can you please tell everybody again what is the FCAT and what is FCAT 2.0?
The Florida Comprehensive Assessment Test, version 2, testing reading, math, science, and writing, grades 3 through 10.
Okay, and I know we're talking about it, just listening to it, I don't even have to take the FCAT anymore, and I'm feeling nervous about it, and I'm pretty sure you guys are too, and I'm sure you guys watching feel a little bit nervous because everybody's mentioning it, you see it everywhere, you hear your teachers talk about it. So, MaryElla, I know we talked about before about the FCAT and how it feels like. How does the FCAT make you feel?
I get very nervous. Testing in general is not my strongest point in school. And I remember it was 2 years ago, I started having anxiety really bad, so I had to take it the week after when they did the makeup FCATs, because my heart just started just beating. I just get nervous.
Oh, that stinks. Like, it just stinks having like that.
Yes.
Is it just like the FCAT, that test, or just any kind of test you feel nervous or that one?
Any test.
Test.
It like, you know what you want to write down and what you want to say, but then it just flies out when you're being pressured and it's a time test and stuff, so.
Yeah. I'm sure you're not the only one.
No.
And what about you, John? Do you feel nervous?
Definitely. My first year at Liza, 4th grade, it was one of my first times taking the FCAT, and I was sick. And I had to get checked out early and everything. I was so sick about it. And Miss Green, the assistant principal at our school, helped me, and she was a godsend to me when it came to that, because she got me over with some test-taking strategies. She got me some good study habits, and ever since, I feel better about it. But it's still a big issue, and it's still, all the kids talk about how it's such a important thing and how nerve-wracking it can be sometimes.
All right, so I have a question for you, Dr. Alexis Tibbetts. Do you have any tips for these kids that deal with anxiety, or your little tip that you deal with?
Well, I worry about our students because I realize, Valerie, that many of them get very nervous about this test, but I want all the students to hear and know this. Life is going to be filled with lots of tests. You have to take tests to get a driver's license, or to get into college, or to get out of college, or to get your bar exam or your medical boards. I want parents to help us instill confidence in our students too. I know a little bit of nervousness is a good thing, but parents, we have to help our students realize that they have the skills to do this and build their confidence. They have great teachers, as we do in this community. But parents, there are lots of things on the FLDOE.org, the Florida Department of Education.org website, to help students prepared. And they have been well prepared at school. Students that do well in school are going to do well on the FCAT. We don't teach the test, but we teach the Florida Sunshine State Standards, which are tested on the FCAT. So the important thing that parents have to realize is when your children are in school and they're doing their homework, and parents, you've got to be our partners here now to stay on top of your child's education. But the Florida DOE website has released FCAT exams. You students are familiar with FCAT Explorer. It has actual sample test materials and test bank items, and your schools have those too. So we just have to remember that, as I said, testing is a part of life, and we're going to build that confidence, and you're well prepared, so we want you to work on those strategies to feel good about it. I know that Valerie and Nellie are going to have Mrs. Lana Franzelia, the guidance counselor at Bruner Middle School, and Carmen Bess Jones, an excellent math teacher there, speak with you in a few weeks about test-taking strategies and study skills and test preparation, and parents, exactly some things that you can do to help your child be prepared that day in terms of eating breakfast. Now, if your child doesn't normally eat a big breakfast, you wouldn't want to fill them up with breakfast. Don't give them sweets, because donuts and things like that create too much glucose in the brain for you to concentrate on a test, and lots of other things about normal sleep patterns. But I have a lot of confidence in you kids, and you're going to do well. And parents, don't make your children nervous. I don't want you to overly react to your children about this FCAT, because moms, dads, sometimes if you're overly stressed, you stress your children, and that's not a good thing. So we want you to build their confidence.
That's great. And you know what? We were talking about the FCAT. I believe Aaron said he didn't even feel that nervous about it. So tell the viewers what you feel about the FCAT and how it makes you feel.
Well, mostly since I was in 3rd grade and I started taking the FCAT, I felt pretty good. I mean, my grades were doing good, so I was like, well, if my grades are really well, then nothing bad could happen. So from there, I've been, taking my time, not rushing, always waiting, patient, doing my problems like I'm supposed to do, and I ended up good in the end.
Well, you're really confident with the FCAT. Now, with your friends feel this confident with the FCAT as you do?
Not really. But a lot of times they won't really mention it. It's only like sometimes when people, especially my AA teacher, she's like, well, if your reading isn't good, then, you have to make a higher level in middle school to pass the grade here at Bruner. And, it's just different. I think much differently than my friends. So. Okay.
Did you ever think about giving your friends little pointers and tips since the FCAT seems to work out for you?
My tips are don't rush because, they're always in a hurry. My friends have told me that they just want to go ahead and get it over with. But it's something that, it will be going on for a little bit longer now, so it won't be that much stressful.
Very smart.
Valerie, let me say something about what Aaron just said, because he made an excellent point there. Number one, you don't have to rush, and number two, what students really need on the FCAT is what we call stamina, test stamina. The reading passages in the 10th grade, where MaryElla and the high school students are normally 850 or more words. That's not a paragraph. They have to read a long passage and answer questions about it, so you have to take your time and read the passage well. Most of the math problems are increasing in what we call complexity and reliability and validity. So what you have to do is realize that a math problem may take 3 or 4 steps. Most of the math problems you have on the FCAT you can't solve in 1 or 2 steps, can you? No. You have to solve them in 3 or 4 steps, so it takes a little time. You have to be careful, and you have to make sure your work is correct on each step of the math problem, because if you're rushing, like Aaron says some students do, and you make a mistake on the second part of the math problem, then the answer is going to be incorrect on the 4th step. And I know that sounds very simple and basic, but we do want kids to have test stamina, and that's exactly what Aaron is talking about. It's like training to run a longer race. It's not a sprint, y'all. This is a marathon. You might be testing in one day an hour and a half or 2 hours, won't you kids? And so you have to kind of be mentally prepared, just like someone who was in a race or something. You don't just go in and think, well, I can do this short term in a hurry.
And do you think it's harder now for kids because tests, you do have to sit for a long time, and not everybody can do that, and some kids now have a harder time when it comes to sitting still, probably because of video games or whatnot. So do you think actually like doing video games like that can actually hinder them when it comes to the FCAT?
There's a lot of research about that, Valerie. That's very interesting. A lot of the neuroscience will support what Valerie just said. So parents, the night before or as you move into this always, kids that are on the computer and watching TV and spending lots of times doing video games up late into the night, we do know that it impacts their learning the next day. So you want your children reading and writing and doing math problems at night. Probably not what parents want to make their children do, but if you want a well-rounded student, we're asking you to be our partners, and so they can be prepared for college and careers of the future. You're exactly right, Valerie.
And the other thing that, another take on looking at the FCAT and actually doing well, I was talking to them about behavior, and some of the kids here were talking about, they want to pay attention in class, but some of the kids that's in their class doesn't really pay attention, and it's kind of hard for them. So what do you think about that, John? Because I know you mentioned, we talked about behavior in the kids.
Yes.
How does it make you feel?
It's kind of aggravating because it's aggravating for us as the student, because you can't learn if your teacher has to stop 50 times in a class period to tell a bunch of kids to be quiet. But it's also, in the same token, annoying for the teachers as well, because they're having to stop. They want to teach. They want us to be ready for this test. And they're having to stop 50 times in a class period to tell kids to be quiet, stop doing that, quit messing with whatever.
I'm so glad you mentioned teachers, because it's good that you spoke up for them, especially being a student. And I think parents, you also need to realize that too, with kids and behavior, that's actually a hindrance, not just for, it's for the kids that's in the class trying to learn the FCAT, but also the teacher too. So I think that's, a fair thing. And then also kids on y'all part, what you can do if you have a friend, I'm not saying you are that person, but if you know someone or you have friends that, maybe not paying attention and they're just like, hey, I just feel like being a nuisance. So maybe you should tell them, hey, we really want to learn, we want to do this. Can you please just wait and save this? You can be a jokester, outside of class, So I think that's a great pointer. So what do you think about that with behavior?
And well, John, I can't speak much for Liza Jackson because it's a charter school and it's certainly a great school. But in our schools, what I encourage our students to do is to tell their teacher. Now, I know sometimes y'all don't want to do that, but if there's someone distracting you in the back of the room or talking or doing something that pulls you off task, you need to let the teacher know that, because we assure parents that we're not going to have kids in class that are distracted and class being disrupted, as you said, for teachers. Teachers are there to teach and students are there to learn, and if there are students that are not learning and are distracting, we're going to remove those kids and put them in an alternative setting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know there's so much about the FCAT that, we didn't even get to cover, but we will. And thank you so much for you guys listening and checking us out. We said a lot of information. You're probably going to have to watch the show again and take notes. Pointers for the FCAT, and we will quiz you. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you so much for tuning in on us on FCAT. And you know what? We want to hear from you guys. You might have been watching us on the show and say, you know what, I have a question about the FCAT, and you want to ask us, you want to reach us. Well, you can. You can actually go to www.facebook.com/InsightTelevision or www.insighttelevision.org, and we will be glad to answer the question. Even her Dr. Alexis Tibbetts, she would offer answering questions if we can't, or the school won't be able to answer. So we will try to get to you and answer it, and we will try to answer it on the next show. Because our next show will be FCAT Part 2, and we will have 2 FCAT specialists from Bruder Middle School to guide the children on how to take the test. So please check back on Cox Communications channel for that episode. And thank you so much, Dr. Alexis Tibbetts,
Valerie,
for joining us.
I can't tell you and the Insight kids how much I appreciate you and Miss Nellie sponsoring a show on the FCAT. That was a wonderful thing for you to do, and I know it's not your favorite subject, but it needs to be addressed.
Oh, thank you so much. And the Insight kids and I thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next edition of Insight. And meanwhile, take a look at our website and like us on Facebook. Thanks for watching.